Welcome back to the Relationships Made Simple for Men podcast with me, Bryce Bauer. Today, I have some good and bad news for you. You are never going to fully understand your partner, and your partner will never feel fully understood by you. Why do I say that? I'm going to bust out some scientific research for you. Most neuroscientists agree that we consciously process under 1% of the information our brain handles. Our conscious awareness can process 40 to 60 bits of information per second. The amount of sensory input is roughly 10 to 11 million bits of information per second. So to put that in simple terms, when someone says, "You don't understand how I feel," the scientific response would be, "You don't know how you feel either, at least consciously." So how can we expect someone to fully understand us if it's impossible to fully understand all of our experience ourselves? For some reason, this brain fact has really helped me be much more patient with myself and with others. Probably because I always had a sense that this was true. I just didn't know the extent of our ignorance. So, what do we do with this information? Do we just give up on the whole project of understanding ourselves and our partners? Of course not. This is a huge part of what makes life so meaningful for us. Figuring out problems, overcoming obstacles, relating with people, creating shared experiences. That's the good stuff. The issue is with how we relate to it. If we think we figured ourselves out or our partner, we stop growing. Or if we can't stay patient with ourselves and our partner, it starts to feel frustrating or like a chore. That's not fun either. I really look at relationships as a long form of meditation. We keep coming back to the work, which is, how can I understand more deeply, more embodied, more lovingly? And as we do this with ourselves, it ripples out into the world with the people that we come into contact with. What I've picked up on after working with people for over 15 years on very personal matters is that we fail to see how big of an impact we really have on the world. Think about the circle of influence. Usually your closest relationship at this point in your life will be your spouse or your children. If you help to cultivate an environment in the home where the members of the home feel supported and attuned to, they can do amazing things in the world. Think about how many people they come into contact with. Think about what they could accomplish. You have a direct impact on them. And there's an entire landscape of impacts that you could have on someone, different peaks and valleys. So even though it might seem small and innocent, if you're constantly blaming your partner, bickering about nonsense, and generally creating an environment of stress in the home, you could really be ruining their life. They might lose sleep, they might feel disempowered, and they might spend most of their time thinking about how to get a better reaction out of you or complaining about you to everybody. I'm not saying that they don't have a part in that, but you could also play a big part in creating the worst relationship imaginable. And if your partner's suffering, you're going to suffer too. Here's the good news though. If you have enough power to create that, you also have enough power to create the exact opposite. And here's where I will bring it back to my original point about never fully understanding your partner. Men generally are pretty smart. They know when they fuck up about 80% of the time. And I think for the most part, any man who's listening to a podcast like this wants to take ownership. The issue I see is with the remaining 20. This is where things get tricky. It might surprise you to hear me say that the response, "I understand," often backfires. The reason is because emotionally, it comes off as a dead end. And you might have had conversations like this before. There's a conflict and they want you to understand something. about them and you're like, yeah, I understand. And they're like, no, you don't. Because if you did, you wouldn't XYZ. Does that sound familiar? This is a really common miss for men because even though we might get it intellectually, yes, I heard the words that you said, I made the connections. We're not really leaving space for the emotional aspect of understanding. And usually this is a deeper form of empathy. It's slower, softer, more heart centered. Jenny really likes this phrase that she heard once, which goes something like, you're as deep and as wide as an ocean, and there's no way that you'll fully understand all of you in a lifetime. That's the type of framing that can spark our continued curiosity about our partner. So when we say, I understand, it can feel like we're being put into a little box. Because the truth is, I will never fully understand someone else. I don't know what someone has been through in their life. And I try to take this into account everywhere I go. I don't know what someone else is really going through. It doesn't mean that certain behaviors should be acceptable, but if someone tailgates me on the road and then speeds in front of me like a crazy person, it's better for me to let that go and to think, wow, they must be having a really bad day, or they're having trouble processing their own life experience. And I want to stay boundaried with myself so that I don't let an event like that take over my day and bleed into my relationships. And if I do have a big feeling, I have the power to contain that. I don't have to catch up to them and tailgate them to prove a point and scare everyone else in the car. People do shit like that. It really makes no sense. And we all probably do at least little versions of that in our life when we're not paying enough attention. It's worth recognizing that we don't always know what's going on with ourselves and our partners, and that we don't always have the right answer. We might think that if our partner did exactly what we wanted them to do, that that would relieve our stress and anxiety, but that might not be true. And the project of trying to get others to conform to us, the self-focused project of what can you do for me, doesn't work well in long-term committed partnerships. What works better is looking for ways to continually support our partners in the ways that they want to be supported. Not what we think they should want, but what they say they want. And this is the mysterious 20% that I think a lot of men miss. And I get that it can be confusing. Of course it is. Sometimes I'm so surprised at the things that men miss. For instance, we recently had a couple come into town to do a private couples retreat. And one of the core complaints of the wife was that her husband was not a great listener. A very common complaint, right? It can go both ways. And when we asked him what his methodology was for listening, he didn't really have anything. He had never really looked into it. He was basically like, well, I know she doesn't like when I interrupt, so I try to do that less, which is a great start. But when we moved into some actual skills practice, it became very apparent that he didn't really know how to focus on what she was saying. He might not interrupt, but he was still thinking about what he was going to say. So when asked to reflect back what she said, he was drawing a blank. And that's okay. We can build our capacity to take in more information from our partner and focus. That is a skill. But to go 30 years and continue to hear the same complaint without really doing much about it just goes to show how oblivious we can be to the simplest of requests. And side note, he did like to say, I understand. And when I pointed this out to him, that I don't think his partner feels understood when he says that, she agreed. So I'm thinking about how to tie this all together. For one, you will never fully understand your partner, and that's okay. She might always feel a missing piece there, but it's your job to stay in the journey of understanding. As futile as it may seem, that dedication to the journey is what helps your partner feel like you care. Instead of, I understand, you're just really anxious, you're just really stressed, the better move is to ask the question, what might I be missing here? Is it something that I'm not understanding about myself? Probably yes. And might it also be something I'm not quite understanding about you or misunderstanding? Probably yes. This is different than most work projects. With work, sometimes you can look at a problem, analyze it, predict outcomes, track progress, and eventually finish it. With emotions, there is no start and end. I'm just going to keep trying moment to moment, day after day, and try to breathe as much love and compassion into the space as I can. And it goes without saying that this doesn't apply to real abuse. That's objective. But for most of what people struggle with, it's just the ability to hold the emotion and stay with the curiosity and having the wisdom to discern what we can really know and what we can't. Hopefully that makes sense. I hope this episode was uplifting. Maybe it put you in a state of deeper curiosity about yourself. I'm running my men's group again this year. We meet on Wednesday nights. So if you want to get in on that, I'll put some info in the comments. It's a really good group of guys. And with that, I'll see you next week.